Hello, everyone. How is it going? Happy Queer Quest, happy Pride. Yay! My name is Ray. I'm gonna let's do an audio check really quick. If people in chat, if you can hear me, tell me you can hear me. Let's just do it double. Oh, I always know there's gonna be one issue. So let's get it out of the way now. I'm going to continue going. So my name is Ray. I am CEO and founder of Queerty Gamers. We are a 501c3 LGBTQ gamer nonprofit, and we are celebrating Queer Quest. It is a 24-hour raid-a-thon. There's been some lovely individuals today that have been fundraising and raising awareness of our programs on our behalf. Thank you, Chris. And so I have some awesome individuals over here, and I'll introduce them in just a moment. I just wanted to let y'all know. So we're gonna have a raid. I'm gonna probably pause in between folks talking to acknowledge that raid later. We have donations going on, so if you would like to donate, we are fundraising. This is our own individual campaign. It goes into the larger fundraiser. If you want to fundraise on your own channel, that we're more than happy that you can. We are aiming for $200 today with this stream, and every $50 there is an incentive. We have some video games like 2064, thanks to Midboss. We also have some gift cards, thanks to Pipeworks Studios. The two folks here are from Pipeworks, and I'll let them introduce themselves. And yeah, so just have a lot of fun. We're going to be asking questions. We're going to be talking about what is it like to be in the industry as a queer person or someone who supports queer people, and so on and so forth. So I will go ahead and let Monica take the first intro. If you want to let us know your name, pronoun, professional background, random fact, anything you'd like.
Hi, I'm Monica. My name is Monica. My pronoun is she, they. I identify as genderqueer. I am also pansexual. I came out when I was 13, and I was lucky that I never had like the fear of like staying closet because I just didn't know it was a taboo before I came out. I was like, I'm also like the autism special, so I think like I kind of just missed a lot of stuff. And so that's my weird came out story. And like later when I'm adult, I met a lot of people that talk about like how scared they're like coming into their family, and I was like, oh my god, I just totally did not like aware. Like my family was like really angry afterwards and stuff, but like I just did not know what to expect before I came out. Um, and I live in Pittsburgh. I'm a game designer. I love system and combat design. Um, a fun fact about me: I love cats, and I'm a little bit addicted to bubble tea. I think bubble tea is the best delicacy in the world, and whenever I met someone who never had bubble tea, the first thing I do, I'll take them to bubble tea. So yes.
I love that. You have me beat by 2 years, so I came out at 15, and mine was I was dating this guy in high school, my first boyfriend, and I
Yeah.
said, "Okay, I guess I'm gay," and that was it. And like I guess it's like a very like um, I would say like a privileged coming out experience because like people have laid the foundation down for us, starting with like Stonewall riots. If you don't know what that is, Google it.
Yeah.
We might talk about it today, but if not, Google it. Bing it. And then choose Queerty Gamers as your charity when you Bing it. Uh, and then what's your favorite bubble tea?
Oh, I think the traditional just black milk tea is the best, but I also really into lavender milk tea.
Ooh.
Mm,
And tapioca is always the superior choice, in my
the
Yeah.
classics.
opinion.
All
Yes.
right. Those are good flavors.
Yes.
Thank you, Monica. Ken, did you want to
Yeah,
introduce yourselves?
absolutely. I work with Monica at Pipeworks Studios, and yeah, I'm a design manager there, and so I like to help train on board, like help people get comfortable in the environment, and my journey to this position started way back in 2000, um, and in the QA department. Uh, and one thing that I kind of love about QA is that these are people that like to look at and break down systems. And honestly, like you will find a lot of people who are questioning, who are interesting, who have all kinds of unique topics and takes on gender in there. And so, like, I've met all kinds of people by starting at that layer of the industry, and it has been a lot of fun in the intervening years. Um, and one of the things I do at Pipeworks also is head up the employee resource group, and that is a grouping of employees that are not like they look at diversity issues around us and kind of like talk about what's going on, figure out how to introduce more inclusive approaches to the office, and they kind of function as a whenever the official corporate things happen, the ER can go, hey, this is the employee point of view on that. I want to make sure you have that for you. Cut with this uh, Twitter announcement or whatever, so that we can help you engage these communities better. And it's been fun so far.
That's awesome. We did miss very short portion of what you were saying, but we got the most of it. So I don't know
Okay,
if you have any kind of noise filters on there.
I think I
However,
actually accidentally just right clicked a thing.
oh,
It's on me.
oops. I was gonna say like QA is definitely the way, like a very good way to get into the gaming industry, like get your foot in the door. Not to get the door, that doesn't make sense. I'm really bad with analogies. We're gonna learn that throughout the next few hours. Like I'm really bad at analogies. I was telling someone the other day I'm gonna put my feet in the sand, but I think it's like dig your heels in the sand, right? Like I'm so firm on my position, I don't care what you say. So we're gonna mess a lot of stuff up on that front. But yes, QA is a really great way to get in. That's how I got into the industry in 2000. And I started out, kind of a combination of, getting into QA, but also having a network of queer friends that are in the gaming industry, which is a great network. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of the Gay Mafia. Or the LGBTQ mafia, but that's what it's kind of called. It's like it's not like a real mafia, like an organized gang, but essentially, like yes, right. I just have to clarify, FBI, we're not a gang.
We're not mafia.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Thank
But
you, FBI.
it is a great way when you're able to connect with folks that, and this is kind of goes into what you were talking about in an employee resource group, which we'll probably talk about more later today. When you're able to connect to folks on more than just video games, when it's video games, identity, and then especially importantly, like past experiences. And Monica was on a podcast that we did, I believe, earlier this year or late last year on PTSD in gaming, which affects folks across the board. It doesn't matter if you're queer or not. And so when you're able to kind of connect on so many different points, you're able then to really accomplish so many things because you have a shared experience and things are just really important to you. So thank you, Ken. I appreciate you and Monica introducing yourselves, and we're gonna get into these questions because I know that we said we were gonna start at 11:30. We started a little bit later because of some technical difficulties, which always happens. If you work in the gaming industry, you know something's gonna happen. It's totally fine. You just have to learn how to work with it. So my first question to all of you, and feel free to jump in, whoever wants to go in. And we did get a raid from Dr. Krabby, so I'm gonna give a quick pause and say hello, Dr. Krabby. Hello, community.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. Hi,
Ooh.
Clanny. Taja. Fire. Hi, Fire. Hello, not Geno. Galleon. It's going so fast. Galleon. Postular. I'm going to mess your names up. Krabby, thank you so much for the sub. So, Krabby is one of our volunteers. They did have to take a short break from volunteering because they were getting their doctorate. And they also got partner. There's some of the written materials on our website, so feel free to check it out. It might be from a year ago or more. Hello, Chris. Hello, Iron. Hello, Vera. Endirza. Eliza. Tip. Hi, everyone. Hi, Saffron. So, hi, everyone. We just got through some intros. Hi, Sina. Sina also is fundraising for us at 12 a.m., by the way, Pacific time. So we just got, hi lady, we're getting started with our intros right now. We have Monica Fan and Ken Barnes from Pipeworks Studios, and we're just talking about employee resource groups, quality assurance. These are ways to either get into and then connect to queer people within the gaming industry. And so I'm going to actually move on to our next question. And thank you, Dr. Krabby. If you need to take a break, feel free to take a break, by the way. But if you want to stay, that's also cool. So please share a bit about your journey in the gaming industry and any notable accomplishments or challenges that you faced as an LGBTQIA plus individual, and whoever wants to start.
Yeah,
Monica, let her
yeah.
rip.
I can talk about my journey is kind of weird because I used to do like fine art. I went to art school. I started doing interactive art, and I was really like I like making art based on my identity and stuff. And when I was in fine art, I realized I'm giving a piece of myself making art to entertain rich people. And there are rich privileged people who will never understand my experience, and they were just like, oh great, good for you, and then walk away. And I'm like, it feels there's like emptiness because I'm not making art for the people I want to make art for, because the people I want to make art for cannot afford to go to galleries. And so I kind of like got into game because I went to grad school for like game design, and I started making a lot of very queer game, like explore my identity as a fan identified genderqueer person, as someone with PTSD, or someone who's like original from China, who's living in America. And one of the game got like talk about like networking and stuff. I was sharing one of the game at a local event, and I think someone at now people can fly Chicago, but back then was Phosphor, just like really liked my game. And I was like, I really want to go to gaming industry. And so he offered me like a QA position. So I also started as QA. And it's great. And to me, at the time, I wasn't sure if I want to be a designer or a producer. So like being a QA was really helpful because I get to work with people in different discipline and to see how they work and what their work like, and whether that would be like somewhere I want to develop my career for. I didn't really go from QA to design as like, I think I read a lot of stuff like fairy tale people like, oh, I go to QA and design. So like I got a QA, and when that QA job finished, I spent a year working as an instructional designer. Because COVID happened and people like was like, we need online class. So I did a lot of instructional design, which turns out to be very helpful for me to like learning how to do interaction, learning how to like, because game design is a lot about teaching people and the mechanics and hoping they have fun. And but I'm not at the same time I was working with a lot of local LGBTQ organization making games, because there's a lot of like activism group in, like I was in Chicago at the time, there's a lot of activism group, they want to use video game to connect people, but they are not people who, they don't know how to make games. So I was working with them to help like basically make a lot of edutainment stuff. That's how I started. And then like slowly I transitioned into like becoming a game designer. But it is really interesting because as someone who's pansexual, in my formative years, I experienced a lot of biphobia, a lot of panphobia from LGBTQ community. So like I'm always a little bit scared, which is it's because I don't feel like really belong to like cisgender straight people, but also like a lot of like LGBTQ like space, especially like now it's a lot more like welcome, inclusive, but like 10 years ago it wasn't like that. And it was like, and a lot of like environment is like, oh, this is for gay men only, or this is for gay women. And so like as someone who's pansexual, it's a little bit hard to find your space. So and sometimes it's like I'm not really sure where I really belong. And also just like despite came out very young, I still have like 10 years where I just wasn't sure, and I was in an abusive relationship where my pansexual identity was being denied. So I think actually working in video game helps me to connect with other LGBTQ people. So it's like my journey is kind of weird. It's like I will get into game first, and then I connect with other LGBTQ people, and their boldness and their like outspoken, their ability to like just be who they are was what helps me to find my own identity and to be able to be comfortable with who I am.
Yeah, so I first off, QA gang, woo. Uh, I think you're totally right that, and I think still within the the queer community, there can still be pushback against everything because we're not a monolith like community. There are going to be folks that are like, oh,
Yeah.
I just want to be among A, B, and C and not D, E, and F. Don't ask me to do my alphabet. I'm bad at it. But I do see things getting better for sure, especially within the gaming industry. I think that things are getting better. Of course, there's always room for improvement. There's always going to be room for improvement. To quote something from The West Wing, which I think they quoted someone else because it was, I think it's like Latin and I don't know Latin, is that nothing is ever going to be complete because it's always being built. It's kind of like, oh yeah, it's like on the dollar bill or something, there's a pyramid that's not complete. And we're always striving to be better. So it's never going to be a perfect community. And that's totally fine because we're always striving to do better and be better. And so I'm saddened to hear that you didn't feel welcome in those communities, but I'm glad to hear that it's changing. And I just know that I've been there, not for the same reasons. I'm sure a lot of folks have been in the same position. Even if you're not queer, there's always a sense of wanting to belong, but not feeling like you belong. And that's kind of just what that's what the queer movement is kind of about, right? It's not just we are queer, we are pan, we are bi, we are, gay. It's we want to live our true lives, and you don't need to accept us, but you do need to respect us. And so I'm glad to hear that things are getting better. And by the way, y'all, I can't say it enough. Quality assurance is such a fun job. Like I didn't stay in it,
Yes.
but it's fun. Like you get to and you get
I
like
still kind of miss it, to be
yeah.
honest, because it's just like, here's this chunk of stuff to do, make sure it's all perfect, obsess about it as much as you want, and then write it up. And like, that's so, I could sink into that all day still.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have done this. I do that a lot. Like when I play video games, sometimes I'll encounter a bug and I'll try to figure out why it's broken, and I will send a bug report to the like game dev. I was like, I know you didn't want this, but just like in case you care, here's like how to repo it.
I love doing ad
And
hoc.
just for all the people in the out there in the QA trenches too, like, I pay attention. I mean, like, now up at the manager tier, like, if somebody's up for like they're interested in being a producer or they want to move over to a different discipline, I'll look at their stuff and I'll go, okay, you are writing bugs really well because you understand the concepts, you have a good mind for discerning what issues are and aren't. So like, I pay attention to bugs. I do read them.
Yeah, but also like I just want to emphasize QA is a valid career path. I feel like there's this misconception and like which happens a lot is like people are like, oh, I'm just gonna be a QA and I want to be something else. You still need to love your job, and like QA is a valid career path and you can definitely like establish as like an expert QA.
There are a lot of bigger studios that are actually making it much more of like expanding the concept
Yeah.
of it to where some places now have like a QA person on teams, like even before you would bug stuff to be like, okay, I can see where this feature you guys are planning would run into an issue. Can you help me write up a test plan for it? Can I suggest a thing that players would like a little better, that's more welcoming, that's more like inclusive? So like definitely they're becoming more and more options.
Yes. I think that was wonderfully said, and I don't think I could add anything more to it. Definitely get into. I'll just say one more thing. I love the crunch time. I love working past like 2 a.m. I know, like, and then you got the overtime. And I know. It's not weird. I don't. Maybe it's weird. Okay. I don't
If anyone
recommend.
asks, I never recommended that, and always work within normal human core hours. But oh, like if you look at my check-ins log history, it's all going to be at like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. Like that's when my brain is braining.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I
Yes.
think
Oh.
this is definitely different. Like because I had a career before game development, and one thing that I find game development is very different from like a lot of other office job is game development is a lifestyle. It's like even you're not working, you're a lot of time like I'm playing games, I'm watching movies, I'm learning like how things are like message are spread, and sometimes when I'm like in showers, I would just be like thinking about the problem I'm dealing with, and it's definitely like count like a little bit like it's my passion, it's my job, but it's also like part of who I am.
big red flag. Not necessarily, but like it can be a partner's issue, right? Like
Yeah.
definitely you got to kind of be like, okay, this person is going to be doing a thing for like 8 to 12 hours every day. If I'm not good with that, it can cause some friction. So you got to find people that work with that kind of schedule and are like okay with that and like accepting of it and have their own stuff to focus on so you can share your together time together. So like that's yeah, it can be an issue.
All right, I'm gonna move on to the next question, which is, well, actually, Ken, did you want to add on to that question
Oh,
of?
gosh, not I mean, I think Monica covered it super well.
Okay.
I covering all the stuff I did before I wandered into games would be kind of, like, crazy. It's a laundry list of stuff. I,
Oh, totally.
wandered out of, yeah, school with, like, a philosophy degree, and then, like, just did
Okay.
wandering
Philosopher.
Ronin across the states until I landed at a place. Um, and during that time, like, just I was always leaning on my online communities, right? Like even way back when I was like, this is how I stay in touch with people, even if I'm mobile. Like I'm gonna date myself here, but like America Online or Aimbot or Messenger were like chat clients at the time before all this, and like
MSN Messenger.
being able to right MSN. So being able to reach out to these communities so often helped me when I was trying to just look for enough validation to bring up an issue or to talk about it at work. I could just reach out and go, okay, I'm not crazy, right? Like this is a I'm seeing this, no one else is seeing this. Do you guys see this? So I can feel empowered to like talk about it. And so big ups to y'all out there in like chat land and online community land. You make it possible. Thank you.
Also, for chat, if there are any questions, if we have time, we can try and get to them. So feel free if you have any questions about like getting into the industry, specifically for folks from Pipeworks Studios, just throw them in chat, and I'll do my best to take a look. Or if we have a mod that's coming in, they can send me a message about one of them. So our next, oh, and then one more thing, we do have fundraising going on. The first $50 donation will be a giveaway for Midboss's 2064 random access memory, so RAM. And then, so thank you, Midboss. And then Pipeworks Studios has donated gift cards. So our $100 donation will kick off a giveaway for a $50 Xbox gift card. $150 is the game Sable, and that's from Midboss. Thank you, Midboss. And then $200 will be a $75 gift card, PlayStation gift card, thanks to Pipeworks Studios. So thank you. Okay, next question. How did you navigate the process of entering the gaming industry as an LGBTQIA person? Were there any particular resources, support networks, strategies that helped you along the way? And I'll just say off the bat, like for me, like again, the LGBTQ mafia, not a real organized crime thing, but it's just friends that are queer. We do have very like, we have big bonds and like, we're like, so for example, in my instance, somebody was saying that they were hiring at their studio, and it was one of my queer friends, and I was like, yes, and they like got me an interview. So, is there anything that Monica or Ken that you suggest that could help maybe folks that want to get into the gaming industry, they don't know how, they need networks, they need resources, etc.?
Yeah, I think one thing I remember when I joined first, like again, it's like 5 years ago, so it's a little bit ago. I, as a non-binary person, it's kind of hard because you have the bro club where I naturally don't fit in, and then you have the woman in game where I sort of fit in, but not really. And like, there really isn't like, oh, non-binary in game. Like I don't like, I don't. Maybe there is now, but like there wasn't any, and it was. I think as someone who's like my gender identity matters more when I try to like navigate getting in the game industry than like so like at first I actually try to like not pretend but like try to lean more into my fan identity just so I can like make friends with other women in game. Um so that was like really hard. and and it's just like a lot of times it's like, oh, am I belong to this space? You're not really sure. And but also like being a person of color, it's another layer of like difference. Where like a lot of I feel like at least back in the day, a lot of LGBTQ space are very white dominant, which is fine, but like it does makes me feel like, oh, I'm just like this outsider trying to like make a space for myself. And I don't like there's a lot more resource now. Like QWERTY is a really good resource. Like QWERTY parties are amazing. Like GDC parties and stuff. I am part of the host of SavePoint, which is networking organization for gender marginalized people. So like women's, trans, non-binary, like anyone who's not a cisgender male can join. And this like we try to create a small and inclusive environment, and help people like finding jobs and stuff. But that's like the stuff I know. I know there's definitely more like for people who want to go to the gaming industry who are not in the industry. I would recommend if you are in the US space to look into LGBT, not sorry, to look into IGDA Foundation on Code Caven. Those are really like I joined the industry through IGDA Foundation, and the grantee and scholar program was like super helpful for me to like just meet other people who are in either in the industry or people who want to join the industry. Because when I tried to join the industry, I was like in Wisconsin, and like everyone just I told them I want to join the game industry, they just look at me and be like, why? So like being able to meet other people who also share the same goal was like super super helpful. Versus if you're in UK, there's a really good organization called Limit Break, which they also help like marginalized identity people get into the game industry. And so definitely look into like those type of organization to help you. But otherwise connect through IGDA. IGDA has chapters in a lot of university. If IGDA does not have a chapter in your university, maybe you can create one. And like I recently started IGDA Neurodivergent, and I think it's not a perfect organization, but it's a good way to connect with other people.
Those are great resources. Thank you. And
Yeah.
I'll be sure to share that in our Discord later on. I wrote some of these down. I know some of the ones you mentioned, like IGDA, International Game Develop IGDA. I always mix it up because there's also an
Yes.
IDGA, and I'm dyslexic
Oh,
apparently.
really?
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know if they're like plumbers or something, but they're definitely
Constantly
and
turf
that
wars over this name.
and that wasn't a joke about Pipeworks Studios and plumbers. Like I don't know why I said plumbers and Pipeworks. That's like plumbing, but anyway. But yeah, I'm gonna make sure to write these down so that folks, if you didn't get a chance to write this down, check out our Discord later. I'll be sharing these. Codehaven, you said they're great. And Limit Break in the UK, and then you mentioned Safe Point, correct?
SavePoint is for
Great.
people if you're already in the game industry or like are like making game.
That's
And
great.
yeah,
I love that.
because I feel like as a marginalized person, we talk about like putting people in the game industry. And one thing I've noticed as part of IGDA Foundation cohort is I joined in 2020 or 2019, and like we have an issue. Our industry has a huge issue of retain talent. That's why you don't see a lot of marginalized people in leadership position, because a lot of people they get those like they join the industry then get burned out because we are not being treated fairly. And so part of SavePoint and part of our mission is help retain marginalized talent in the game industry, and to like by creating a safe space, by creating a place to like hang out and talk when like maybe your company is not like the most supportive. So because to me, if we want to include diversity, we need to make sure we can retain the talent that we bring in the gaming industry.
I love that. Yes, that sounds like a really great resource. So I'll be sure to share that. And if anyone in chat, if you see something you really like, clip it because we're gonna put it on TikTok later. So feel free to make a clip. It's a resource. Ken, is there any resources, support networks, anything that helped you navigate or enter the game industry that you want to share with folks?
I would say Monica definitely got the lion's share of organizations that I'm aware of there. Like for me, the path, having started way back up to this point has been much more of a like gradual learning about my environment. 'Cause a lot of these things, did not exist when I came into the industry, and so it's been sort of a process of like going, okay, now I'm in this environment. Somebody just suggested, oh, we should, it's going to be cheaper to not use any female models for this. Let's just prototype it with just dudes or whatever. Just like stuff that seems like it makes sense in the terms of just a project, but like has these inherent biases in the and they end up making. And so really, as I've been around, I've been absorbing like and looking for looking for points to disrupt, looking for times when I can just kind of like leverage my obnoxious self and just step in and go, okay, why are you making that decision right now? Are there some other things that you did not think about? And the main thing that helps, me do that is just sort of, and this is a really generic thing to say. Sorry for anyone who's like, how do I break into the industry? But like, make friends. That's the main above any other thing that's like on your resume or whatever. Like, legitimately, games are really kind of boom and bust, and the thing that most helps anyone stand out is getting a recommendation from someone who knows you and is like, hey, you're really good. And apart from that, I would also recommend looking around for your local game jam clubs. Anything that you've got in the area where people get together and jam, either local or remote. But if somebody is looking at your stuff and you don't have a yard long resume full of titles you worked on, then they're going to want to know, okay, so what do you do? And in that case, you having your own little set of like little games that you've made and can post video of or can post something of, it's streamers will like be equipped for this, but it's getting more important to just have your own little site with your content that people can go look at and refer to you and get to know who you are, and kind of like, and they will be looking at like your Twitter and stuff like that. So just kind of like cultivating a place where the person you are is depicted and shown to your maximum potential and your maximum value, and building your friendship communities as you do. That's going to be a more powerful tool than just about anything in terms of like finding your way into these spaces. And the more of us get in, we're just going to reach a hand out and pull the rest of you along.
I love you said disrupting spaces. I'll share my little antidote to that. Is at one point I was a community manager for MapleStory M, and I don't know if I was under the I don't remember the details, but I basically said that there would be gay marriage in the game to a journalist, and they put that out there, and folks came back to me, and they're at the said company. I won't mention their name. If you look it up, you'll find it. And they're like, "Why did you say that? Now we have to do it." So I don't know if they ended up doing it,
Oh no!
but
Whoopsie!
down the
Buzzers.
oh no, oh, I'm sorry. Down the line, I'm sure they'll eventually add it. I mean, it's it's just natural to have it in a game. And then when you mentioned like local game jam clubs, so one that I'm aware of that I'd love to hit up again, I visited, it was really cool, is I believe they're called Glitch City in Los Angeles. It was literally down the street from my old apartment in Culver City. And they you can pretty much sign up, and you could like it's kind of like open mic almost, but you're scheduled, so you could like do poems, or you could show your game or talk about game theory or like whatever. So really, and then kind of going more into like what you said, making friends. First off, that's really important, because if you want to convince someone of something, it's harder to do as a stranger. Like we've seen Facebook comments, we've seen the Twitter wars. You're not gonna like. Here's the analogy that got messed up. I'll say it this time, right? Everyone's gonna put their heels into the sand. Is that how you say it? Heels into the sand.
Listen,
Heels into the sand.
everyone's gonna get a spa, but wait, no.
Oh, like the little like lava sand. Oh, that sounds so good. But everyone's gonna really dig their heels into the sand. There you go. And so when you can actually meet somebody inside the game industry, and then they can start understanding like maybe how it might be to be queer, marginalized, and then especially if they're in a position of power where they can hire folks, they might be more cognizant of that. So really do make friends. Like no one really changes their mind from being shouted at. You really want
Yeah,
to
right.
make friends. I don't, for sure. If you shout at me, oh, I'm not gonna be your friend anymore.
Mhm.
Like, no, no, don't shout at me. So yeah, no, that's really like coming from a person with thin skin. That is a very good thing to do is
Yeah.
make friends, convince people of your cause, and
Mhm.
that way you can get at least one more person in the door. And I guess just and maybe if I didn't already say this, yeah, queer gaming communities. If you're queer, being part of one, just join one, make friends with them, and
Mhm.
also if anyone is in chat, if you know of any openings, share them in our Discord. We have an industry chat. You can just pop down an opening, and if you can get at least one person in the door, that's amazing. Um,
Absolutely. And I just
yes,
joined up right there. So feel free to hit me up personally. Let
yeah,
me know.
yeah.
I'll look for strings.
Ken's
Yeah,
in the Discord.
I kind of want to add on to that because I remember when I first started doing game jam, the hardest thing is, which like I talked to a lot of fan that in person is like I want to be a designer. That's what I want to do. Everyone wanted me to be an artist. Like everyone I've talked to just be like, oh, like yeah, we don't need designers, or like we have blah 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 who's like who's pro like which programmer can do design and you just like art. And
Mhm.
which to me is like I'm not a professional artist, I'm not even that good. And like but like also like it's not a portfolio page I can send it to my work because I don't want to apply for artists. And then I talked to like my fan identified friends who are programmer and they are professional programmer, but they when they go to game jam they also being like become an artist because
Mhm.
they are
And that's
not a
still an
man.
existing bias. Like
And
you still, if you walk
yeah,
through like a convention floor or something and you introduce yourself and you're like, "Hi, I'm in Gabe's," and you present female, somebody is gonna be like, "Oh, so do you art? What kind?" Like immediately.
yes, and people just like at GDC a lot of people either assume I'm someone's plus one or like I'm an
Mhm.
artist, which I mean I wish I am, I wish I have the talent. But that's kind of like makes me one thing I want to say like regarding that JC Law, she started this Twitter trend called what game dev looks like, which is really really
Yes.
helpful. If you ever feel down and like because you feel like there's no other people looks like you, I highly recommend go to like that hashtag what game that looks like. That's really helpful. But the other I want to recommend Buddy
And then
Gym.
add yourself because I want to see it too.
Yes, Buddy Gym is I would recommend this for queer marginalized people because it's a game jam where the hardest thing about game jam to me is finding a group of people willing to do it with you. And Buddy Jam solved that issue because you submit a survey, says this is who you are, this is the discipline you want to make. And then they will pair you with other people from other discipline. So they will like they will like pair a group for you. And also the other thing I love about Buddy Gym is it's a 2 week gym, not a 48-hour gym, so you can actually sleep. Uh, I couldn't do a lot of weekend game jam these days because I just like I really need sleep on my weekend. So
Sleep is
like
important.
yeah, right. And
It's such a
like
struggle. And yeah, like with a game
yeah.
jam, it's like something I want to do. So I'm like, well, it's fine. I didn't sleep during the week, but I'll sleep on Monday to make it up. Yeah, so like
No.
definitely it's nice to have the extra time to just think and process and then do stuff over 2 weeks.
Yeah, so I highly recommend Buddy Gym for those who like just like who just like wanted like this is your first game jam, you don't know what you want to do, and like or like who for people who's like I really want to be a narrative designer or I really want to be an audio person because you get to do actually the stuff you want to do during the game jam.
And for folks who are watching, or maybe if they watch this VOD later, or clip, what from your experience, what do you need to do to get into a game jam? Do you like do you need to be highly technical or an artist? Could you do narrative? Like what kind of base level skills do you need, if any?
Oh gosh, you can do absolutely anything. Let me try and narrow it down because I know that doesn't sound super helpful. But like a game jam is really just a concept that you want to push for and the tools that you have at hand. So like these days, I mean, even Twine can like actually like incorporate images and stuff. So even if you just wanted to do a little point and click style thing, you can do that with just completely your own free resources. If you want to use something like you can you can download and use any version of Unreal. That's free if you want to step into something more techy, or if you want to do something a little bit less. There's a lot of like kind of like learning game engines out there that you can also practice with. So really, whatever you got at hand is what is probably the tools for the jam that you're going to participate in. And secret note, you can actually just start one, just grab people and go, we are going to make a game. How are we going to do it? We got a week. Let's go.
I love that. Yeah. And by the way, the person who rated us earlier, I don't know if they mind me shouting this out. They did make a video game that's on Steam, so I can't wait to
Oh
see.
yes.
Yeah, if Dr. Krabby ever does get back into game development, if you're not already, love to see more. I downloaded it, I bought it. It's cute. I forget, Dr. Crab, if you want to tell us in chat if that's okay, if not, totally fine. I don't mean to put you on the spot. Anyway, thank you. Those are really great resources. These are things I will also try and share in the Discord as soon as possible after the stream. And just to let you know, we got donation going up there. If you want to donate $1, $5, $10, at $50, we're going to be giving out a video game. Courtesy of Midboss. At $100, we're going to be giving out a gift card for Xbox, courtesy of Pipeworks Studios, which two of the folks here I'm talking to are from Pipeworks Studios. All right, so those are really great resources. Twine, Unreal, just making your own game jam. Let's move on to another question, and I don't think we'll have time to get to all these questions, so I'm going to skip around maybe.
Yeah.
And we could potentially extend this because we are going to be playing Jackbox after, like the three of us and any of it who wants to join. But we
Yay.
might go a little over. So we'll see. We'll see. So let's see. Let's go to let's see. I'm gonna go with this one. This one's really important. I think this one's really like important to Queerty, and I think to everyone here is, in your experience, how important is it for the gaming and media industry to have diverse representation, including LGBTQIA plus voices and stories? What impact do you think it has on the industry as a whole?
As a whole, let me I'll lead off, and then and Monica can follow up with the all the information that they have at their disposal. But honestly, just before anything else, yes, it's super important. Just being in the room is important because there have been so many scenarios where I've heard someone like pitch an idea or a concept, and if they just happen to be looking at a person in the room at that moment who is who is from a marginalized community, and that moment is kind of all they need to go, oh wait, maybe maybe wheelchair demolition derby is not the nicest idea that I could come up with. Let me retry. So like literally just being there and representing is a huge help at the end of the day. But also, yeah, these are things that sometimes if people are in the most privileged class of people, they just do not think about a lot of the concerns that queer and marginalized people have like every single day. And so just being able to acknowledge and point out when the design or the writing or the structure or the art or something could be more inclusive is a massive help, even if you're not trying to like lead a resource group or like push a campaign or anything. So yes, it is super important for people to get in here.
Yeah. To me, like this is a large reason why I'm in the gaming industry because again, going back to my come out story when I was like in middle school, I was dating a girl and well, again, everyone, first relationship, you don't really know what they are doing. But to me, it's actually hard because it was grew up in China. That was not like sexuality is not a thing you talk about with your parents or people around you. Like, and technically, I wasn't even supposed to be dating because I was supposed to be focused on school. Well, I hope my teacher is not watching this, but to me at the time, there wasn't any information about what it's like to be queer, about how to keep yourself safe, about like anything. So I basically devour so many LGBT themed movies and TVs because that's the only way for me to just feel validated, to see other people like success stories, to see like, okay, this is the type of relationship that can be successful. And seeing media representation. But like also another thing I've noticed a lot back in the time is there wasn't a lot of Asian queer media. And my favorite movie is Saving Face. And part of the reason is the first Asian, like East Asian focused queer like lesbian movie I've watched. And like, but there wasn't a lot. And as someone who, as a teenager who's like really looking in media to see who am and who I could be, you feel very like you feel strongly there's something missing on one hand. On the other hand, just being able to see other queer people be happy is so important for the mental, because I was struggle with a lot of mental health issue at the time. So being able to see other queer people living a regular life and be happy was so important for me to keep on living and to survive a hardship in my life, and being able to eventually move out of the country and find a better environment. And so to me, video game is bigger than movie and TV these days. It's a major dominant media that a lot of teenagers are consuming and a lot of people are consuming. So it's important to have representation so people can see who they are in game, and people can know like video games should do what movies are doing, is like telling people your identities are valid. And how do you know if you are valid if you never see people like you in a video game, if you are always playing as a macho man? When like, and the other thing is there's the sense of immersion. Like video games should represent life, and in real life people are very diverse, so we should represent that, because that's like, otherwise you're just living in like someone out, you're playing someone else's fantasy. Without diverse representation, you're playing someone else, presumably older white guy's fantasy. And so to me, that's representation is what very matter, because media impact society. I used to study sociology, so like I used to study like game, like doing media analyze. So to me, like having accurate representation is very important to like give to shape a positive like outlook. But on the other hand, for people who are straight, people who are not part of identity, having those exposed to like queer people in video game helps them to realize we are just normal people like them, help them to realize like, there these days, if you live in America, there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of hate going on. And a lot of hate happens because there's people who never see, like, they never see queer people. They never make friends with queer people. And all their understanding is like the fear mongering in media. So if we can have queer representation in the video game they're already playing, it helps them to expose to the idea of queer people exist, and they can be your friends. And
It's so
they,
funny
like,
because you'll often hear like, "Oh gosh, this stuff is
right?
everywhere nowadays. Oh man, it's just cynical corp." And I'm like, you know what though? I'm just gonna continue to show up and exist and be here in your
Yeah.
field of vision, especially in these days where like a lot of things are happening to make it such that people like work from remote, have to talk to each other via Zoom and other things. It's fun train.
Sorry, I live next
It,
to a train.
no worries, you're all good. Yeah, people have the ability now to kind of like withdraw into their little bubbles where they only see and hear the things they want. And so my response is just, well, then I'm just gonna like start showing up in your video games and in your TV and in your movies and everywhere, so that it is the reality of the fact that there are diverse, amazing, non-traditional people out here doing a bunch of stuff is inescapable.
Y'all brought up so many good points, and like I'll try and remember all of them. So yeah, I think definitely overall having someone in the room and actually representation in the video game itself is super important. And I know that we are going up against a lot of folks. Yeah. Wait, what's happening?
Secret shirt.
Wait, what's her
Let me
shirt
get it.
say?
Let me give you a
You
better
gotta
look
move
at
over
it.
to
Pride
the right.
Month.
It's off on
Uh,
our camera. Can you move over to
uh,
your left? Is it left? Pride Month, Pride Month, Pride Month. Okay, we see it now.
oh my
Pride Month.
god. That's
Pride
so
Month.
funny.
We out here.
Yes. Mine doesn't say Pride Month, but it says Queer Gamers. No, but we are up against a lot, right? So it's not just adversarial governments now, like foreign governments. It's local governments. It's not just like China and Russia right now, because they both said they don't want queer games anymore, or they want to limit access to them. But now it's places like Florida that they're banning queer books from schools, and it's a matter of time before it's video games as well. So, kind of going into like what you said, like why do I have to see this? I don't want to deal with this. Like, not trying to add an inflection or accent to it. It just came out. But um, going into that point, and this is a point I made. Like, Fox News actually interviewed us the other day because we took a stance against Target. Not against Target, but asking Target to like get a backbone, basically.
Yeah.
And one of the things I mentioned, and it's in the article, if anyone wants to go and read it, it's by Hannah Grossman, is that I mentioned that if you don't like something, don't consume it. But we shouldn't be having to fight for our right to exist. You don't need to understand what it means to be queer. You don't need to like it, but you need to respect our rights as an individual to express ourselves and to exist. That's all we're asking for. We want equity. We don't need to be your best friend. We don't need to be your friend. You don't even have to like us. And so I think that's really important, is putting it in putting representation in these games, because if you don't like it, don't consume it. But if you do like it, then that's great, because that's needed by folks. Say for, even queer youth in Russia and China, right? Where our games are being made here and the folks over there are playing them. I think a perfect example is The Sims, and one of you had mentioned, I think Monica, you mentioned the movie Saving Face. That's something that really
Yes.
spoke to you. Something that really spoke to me as like a queer person is really like playing The Sims, like being able to like woohoo the same sex, and then eventually dating the same sex in Sims 2. That really like opened up my perspective and like being able to identify with video games. And so what The Sims did was, initially they did, say they weren't going to release the game. They had like a new marriage expansion for Sims 4. They actually ended up releasing it in Russia, and Russia, has a lot of fines and stuff right now. So that took a lot of cojones. I don't know, like pants. I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah, it was. I really liked what they did there. So I think it's super important that there is representation in these games, and that making the hard decision of, well, we're going to release it regardless of what you say. Because that's super important. So I
Also,
think, yeah, go.
Sorry, as someone who has personal experience growing in China,
Yeah,
just because it's not legal doesn't mean, just because it's not on public TV, it doesn't mean queer people are not consuming it. And
Right.
like, if you exist, if you make those media, even if you cannot release it officially in China, people who want those information, we find like a lot of my early queer movie are come from my friend gave me a flash drive. Like,
Mhm.
it still matters if you like localize in Chinese language, even if you don't officially release in China, it's still like people will find it. Like, the it's not like, I think a lot of Western has like this idea, it's like, oh, this thing is bad now, nobody will ever know about it. That's not the case. Like, like, we live within the system, but we find our way to consume the media we want to.
Mhm.
yeah, and that's exactly why I think it's so important to not back down, because, right, like you said, people will find it, and we want to make sure people have access to that kind of representation. So,
Mhm.
this kind of goes into my next question then. Is we heard that if there isn't representation in the room while they're making the game, um, things might get passed
Stuff
over.
happens.
Right. Monica, kind of like what you said, like the queer tragic trope. Not
Yeah.
that we can't have tragic stories, but that shouldn't be the only ones. Like, we want queer joy, we want happy stories. Um, I will mention an example. I won't do any spoilers, but like, I just played the new Star Trek Resurgence game, and the only queer representation in the game, I was super happy to see it, but it was queer tragedy. That being said, I don't know if a decision would have made it better, because it is a choose your own story, so maybe it was my fault. But what? So this leads us into the next question. Then is like, how do you think gaming and media industries can be more inclusive and supportive of LGBTQI individuals? Like, what specific actions, like, if like getting into them in the room, but is there any other things that they can do to make it better for queer people?
Ooh, as so we're addressing the industry at this point, right? Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, that that's my whole to-do list of just like digging into areas where a given company can gain some ground and learn some things and improve how the number of people that their stuff appeals to, right? And there's a fair amount of stuff. There's a lot of attention right now on notions of diversity and accessibility in games. And so, I mean, you can start to see that impacting the settings menus of games that you're playing, right? Where they're starting to have like colorblind options, and they're starting to have like, okay, control options that are, you can use one-handed, or all kinds of other helpful stuff like that. And basically what you can do is to just like look at the things that you present and note that if there is a feature that can improve ability to enjoy your content for another whole group of people, proactively look for it, and don't just treat it like, oh, eventually someone will complain about this thing and then we'll add it. Like, the best thing you can do is look into how you can, in your normal processes, review and or design your content with the notion that you want to not even just to focus on marginalized groups, but the notion just from the start that you want to approach as many people as you can, and that anything that creates a barrier for people to play and enjoy what you're making is a problem that you can fix ahead of time, and it'll be like cheaper and easier if you do fix it ahead of time, and it'll look a lot better, and people will celebrate that you include actively features that support them. And there's no downside. It's all upside if you plan to include accessibility related features and features that appeal to marginalized groups like upfront. It's gonna work out, I swear.
Yeah,
Love that.
I would say, like I agree with everything Ken said, and I think couple action points that companies can do. First of all, please hire queer people. Like, I have seen super cringe-worthy things that clearly not like written by people who's not that identity, and clearly never being vetted by people from that identity, and
Mhm.
it makes me cringe a little bit. So like, hire queer people. Like, your company should have representation. Like, you should have marginalized people. But on the other hand, playtest. A lot of like video game, like anyone who doesn't know about game development, playtest and iteration is part of 90% of game development. And one thing I've noticed is a lot of playtests, you will just find the easiest people to find, which is cisgender white men. And so it may be worth to like, put some effort to try to find a diverse playtester audience, and try to find sensitive reader,
Mhm.
pay someone, $100 or $200 to like go through your content, see if it's okay or not, and like cultural consultant, like hire people who's actually expert in the area to make sure your content is okay. And another thing that is very recent, I would say, is stand up and like being able to like make a statement when you need it. Like, one example is Call of Duty, which is, I understand, it's a very controversial like franchise, but recently Call of Duty take off a skin from a streamer that because that streamer was openly anti-LGBT, and the fact that Call of Duty was able to do that right away without like wait 2 weeks and like having
Mhm.
inquiry like, should we do this, should we do that? Those kind of like active reactionary behavior when things happen, and being able to make a stand whenever whatever it needed, is very important, because we need to, like, if a lot of time being silent and not saying anything is more harmful than like just you can just take that off. You don't have to make a statement, but like that's a statement you're sending to the player. But if they didn't do anything, they're sending a very different message to the player.
Yeah, I love that, and I just wanted to add in that you reminded me of the time when, if anybody was playing the game Mech Warrior that came out pretty recently, that was like throwback to the mecha fighting days. And one of the reasons that it generated some splash was not because they were like, this is a game for all kinds of kin and people to just like in robots, but like what all they did was take the gender selector and add a they option to he and she. And, obviously there was a lot of like Twitter but like they didn't have to put forth a message or make a donation. They just had to put that little switch in the UI. And immediately on seeing that, people were like, oh, they know I exist. That's freaking great. And I guarantee that helped them out. So like it doesn't have to be a big sort of like expository speech or anything. Just look at your features and see what little things you can do to make them appeal to more people. And there's a lot. So like there's plenty to dig into there.
Yeah, I love everything y'all said. Definitely, like playtesting, Monica, like what you mentioned, and QWERTY, like we're happy to playtest. If anyone here's making a game, no matter how small or big it is, hit us up. Like we'll do some playtesting for you. I have folks here. I surround folks that know what they're doing. So if I don't know how to do it, and I say I don't know a lot, which is a good thing, I know folks who know how to set playtests up. So hit us up, hit up other queer groups, and then something, so I'll leave this one for the last because it's a bigger conversation. I think definitely investing in queer youth. So I know, Monica, you mentioned hiring queer people, and the reason why, so just for everyone who doesn't know, the reason why we don't see a lot of queer people in the industry, or really a lot of different things, is because queer people are kicked out of their houses while they're young, so they don't have that generational wealth sometimes, or often. They, often have to figure out like a place to stay. They're working service jobs that don't always pay a lot of money. And then they didn't have the ability to, get the skills because like majority of homeless youth are queer. So that's something that I think we as an organization are going to start doing a lot more, is working with homeless youth, because a lot of those folks are queer youth. So we'll be working
I
with,
just wanted to shout out that I
yeah.
love that you mentioned that. Personally, like people in my friends group have gone like homeless for periods of time and somehow
Mhm.
managed to just like work their way into the industry and finally land that job. But the number of
Mhm.
barriers they got to hop over to get there is so many compared to like someone that can just kind of like walk out of school and snag a position like that. So like I thank you for
Yeah.
mentioning that.
Yeah, of
Also,
course.
I used to work in academia, and one thing I've noticed is game program are not very inclusive, because a lot of game program was like, let's make a game with your best friend. And when you're the only queer person in the class, which is happens to me, is like nobody want to be in a group with me. And then I end up, the leftovers, we call the leftover groups. And also like a lot of game program are very macho because the students are not very aware. And so one thing that really breaks my heart is I've seen so many queer people go into game program and finish their degree and said never again, I'm never going to the industry, because we didn't protect them when they were being bullied in school. And this happens, this is like crazy, but like happens a lot in like game program, like school program, where like we are, like I was the teacher and I'm supposed to teaching those kids and help them to get industry, but they're just not no institutional help, and there's nothing people can do, and professors are too scared of their ratings to intervene a lot of time. And as a result, you see a lot of marginalized people who like come to this program with stars in their eyes, and they wanted to like they hope so much, but then when they finally finish the program, they get too burnt out to get in. So I want to say, just like use this as a platform. If you had a lot of difficulty in your game program because of your identity, it gets better.
Mhm.
It may sound crazy. I didn't believe when I was in school, but it does get better.
Yeah, that's such a huge note too, because yeah, exactly what you just underlined, the fact that, like, if you want to get into a game development academic program, like you have ascended through several tiers of like privilege barrier to get there in terms of like your minority status, your gender status, your economic status. And by the time you get to that point, most of the rest of the people in that room are just wielding levels of privilege that they, don't realize they have, and they and kind of stamp out the surrounding people who don't come from those places. And so, yeah, it it just sucks, but it does get better. And if you found that like you're frustrated with going through that tier, that's like sort of again where like because I get it, like doing indie stuff, doing game jams, doing things that you can just demonstrate even outside of a school program. I'll tell you, like nobody's looking at like your GPA or anything like that. Like it is useful to have a degree just so that people know you can take instruction, but beyond that, they kind of want to see your portfolio. So if you can do that, there are other options for you than just getting into a games program. Um, yeah, that is all I wanted to say on that. Thanks, Monica.
Yeah, no, this is great information. And again, folks, if you hear something you like, this is all good. Clip it, please. That would be super helpful. I'm gonna add one more thing before my main point I wanted to get to. Is also, I think things that like the industry can help with, is investing in queer games. A huge from our own experience, we know this very well. Queer games are just risky when for investors. They think that it's not going to make money. They think that people aren't going to buy it, etc. So invest in queer games. Whether you are first, I mean, if it does get published, which a lot don't. If it does get published, buy it. Try and buy it. Like if you can't afford it, don't. But if you can, do it. But definitely publishers, investors, take another look at these queer games. I promise you, they will make money. Like if it's a business decision at the day, they will make money. There is a market for it, and just to let you all know, I mean, like that's why there's so many narrative games out there, is because they're less expensive to make. It starts at 10K and goes up.
Right.
I won't name them specifically. One that we've worked with recently, I think, is around 50K. So, it can get expensive, but as long as we're hoping that different developers and publishers start investing in these, and then we can definitely see more queer games getting out there, and not just narratives. Not that there's anything wrong with narrative games. I love them. I love some Dream Daddy. I love some, all those games. But we definitely want to see more games out there in different genres, because there are different folks who like different kinds of video games. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is employee resource groups, and that's what you both are a part of. And
Ah,
so, like making like trying to create an employee resource group at your developer, at your studio, is really important, because then you have folks that are from that marginalized group that you can ask, and
mm,
they can also work with organizations. Like we wouldn't know of y'all and you wouldn't have known of us without your employee resource group. So, and I don't know if you want to add on to that. I've actually never been part of an ERG, by the way. I've worked at many studios. Not one of them had an ERG,
mhm.
to my knowledge. So I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but I just
Sure.
have an employee research group.
Yeah. I would just say that like these groups are essentially, I mean, you can look up a definition, but these groups are essentially what you make them, and they have kind of the same strengths and weaknesses as any other sort of employee group. You'll find that like a lot of the time, if you're trying to work through like your HR team or your PR team to sort of like talk up things as a developer, that they will have like, you know, the risk aversion kind of thing that you just mentioned right now in terms of like being afraid to engage new topics or new types of features. That will impact them because that group has a vested interest in, watching the brand really. um and so there are a lot of groups that are, just kind of like a way in which people can say, well, look, employees can handle all that stuff. Do it. Good job. And pat on the head. Here's your cookie. And so it kind of like it falls to the people involved to make it something that actively makes change, because some groups are really sort of more just like, okay, let's get together and have emotional support and know that we've got each other's back. That's a valid usage of them. Some of them are like, let's actively look for ways in which we can get into the process of developing and producing and managing these projects and introduce more diverse features and design styles. That's good too. At the end of the day, the thing to know about them mostly is that they sort of are based on volunteer energy, and that has all the strengths and weaknesses that you know. On the one hand, you are not beholden to someone else's agenda, but on the other hand, like, you are probably tired after doing the other 40 hours plus of stuff you're supposed to be doing. So on at the end of the day, like, I find a lot of value in them, but like it depends on how much you can bring to it. You may be able to find starting an employee resource group or contributing to one is a thing that like fits well within your schedule, and but it is no person can do it alone. So just remember to like gather folks, boost them, boost your own morale, hang out, game, build some relationships. Like it comes it's cheesy, but it comes back to the making friends thing. Like, because those bonds that you make with people who see you, who really, who see you and know all the things that you are and are comfortable with that, are going to be the people that you later rely on in your life to like recommend you for a job or to recommend or help you push for an accessibility feature. Like, knowing who those people are and then magnifying their point of view outwards is essentially like the most effective aspect of ERGing. Because they also don't have any money, so you don't have leverage. But what you do have is the ability to be visible and magnify points of view, and so lean way into that.
Well said. I love that. ERGing is a verb now.
Ergen.
Yeah, I also we are very lucky that Pipeworks very supportive. Like when I first joined the company, I didn't know there's an ERG group, but the design director of our company actually just mentioned it, be like, "Oh, if you're interested in ERG, talk to Ken." And to me, that was really refreshing because I have in previous experience where the company do not want new hires to know the ERG exists. They do not want you to like be aware of like there's an organization like that, and also like sometimes
It is kind of funny to watch HR sort of sneak around the definition of like a it is an employee group for advancing employee opinions in a unified way. It's a little bit of a sensitive topic, the concept of
yeah.
unifying employee groups to push for active change, but that is another reason why you should get into it.
Yeah, and also just like for Pipeworks, employee group is actually employee led, which is really rare because I have been in ERG where it's led by what someone who's like a discipline officer, and like they ban the word microaggression and
Right?
they ban the words like any word that is like, and like there's retaliation of like, so like it's not all like rainbow. Like we are just very lucky that we're at Pipeworks where like not only they support us to let us like they actually let us do stuff.
Right.
um
Like, we had a really great
yeah.
roundtable for Black History Month pretty recently, in which we really like got people to get into it and tell both like good and bad stories, right? But just like to share their authentic perspectives. And yeah, there are a lot of studios where it really is more of a lip service thing that they do, and I'm lucky to be working somewhere that actually supports our efforts to improve diversity and accessibility around the studio and in our games.
Yeah, one thing I have seen a positive change is I have seen more and more company using their ERG resource as a recruiting benefit. Like as like a recruiting point, it's like you should work for us because we have ERG.
Mhm.
And I want to encourage everyone who's watching and everyone, especially if you are part of marginalized identity, when you look for a job, ask about their ERG, ask about what resource they have to support their employee. And because the reality is, every company, no matter how great the leadership is, there's gonna be conflicts. There's gonna be like misunderstanding. Having a group where you can turn to when things happen is like, to me, like if I'm like looking for a new job, that's like one thing I would be looking for, because you don't want to work for a company just doesn't have any overhead other than the top person. So like one thing I've seen, like I think it's positive, is like a lot of company are like, last GDC talk, you have seen like ERG actually giving GDC talk like from other companies, and ERG can be a good way for company to retain and recruit talent. And I want to see ERG normalized. That's my
Right.
dream. Is it's not a thing that people be like, oh my god, you have an ERG, that's so, you are so lucky. I want to see ERG as a normalized, like if a company goes to a certain size, they should have an ERG. It shouldn't be like this luxury item that people just dream having. It should be like something that come with certain size of the company.
I
Yeah,
love that.
absolutely. And the more it is important, as you said, to just sort of like, even if you're just like interviewing or whatever, you ask about it because that lets people know that like prospective applicants are asking about it. And the more buzz you can generate around that, the more sort of like leverage you begin to build towards making it that sort of normalized, where people are like, oh, it's not like, oh, an ERG, that's one thing people are doing, and it becomes, uh-oh, we don't have an ERG. That's a problem. We're not as competitive as other companies. We got to catch up. And that's really where we would like to see it go.
I agree. I love that. And in the meantime, if your company doesn't have an ERG, feel free to join our Discord. I mean, we're a bunch of folks that love queer gaming and we're in the industry, so yeah, but definitely I would love to see a future where it's not a luxury. Absolutely. I'm gonna combine the next two questions. These are the last two questions I have for y'all because one of them actually is we already kind of talked about. So I'm gonna combine these, and then after we're gonna take a short break so that we could reconvene, and then we're going to be playing some Jackbox together. And also, we got a donation from Iro Foxy, $10. Thank you so much,
Thank
Foxy.
you.
Thanks.
So, this money goes towards our organization. We are 501c3. It goes towards our advocacy, towards our programs, making things like this talk possible. So, if you'd like to donate, there is a link in chat, and there are incentive or there's milestones. So, at $50, we're gonna be giving out a game code thanks to Midboss, and at 100, we're giving out a gift card thanks to Pipeworks Studios. All right. Excuse me. This next and last question, combining it. So let's leave everyone off with a resource for a specific thing, and I'll tell you in a moment, and a memorable experience. So, if anyone that you know is struggling with self acceptance, I know Monica, you kind of mentioned it gets better. Um, from like if someone had a bad experience in like programming class and whatnot. If someone's struggling with self acceptance, facing challenges, expressing their identity, can you leave us with a resource that someone can use? Whether that be something like square breathing, which I always recommend, it's or being cognizant of your cognitive state of mind, which look that up as well. Like I catastrophize a lot, for example, not a good thing to do. But being aware of your cognitive state of mind, there's a specific word for it, is very good. But so if we could get a resource from each of you, and then if you could give us a memorable moment or experience you've had as an LGBTQIA plus individual, or someone that is LGBTQIA plus in your life while working in the industry, anything that's like heartwarming stories. We want some queer joy. So give us some queer joy and a resource for people struggling with self acceptance or their identities. Anyone who wants to start.
I'll let Monica lead that one off.
Okay, so resource other than, I mean, there's like couple, like I've already mentioned, Say Point, and like Women in Game is a big one. Another resource I really want to advocate that is not game related but kind of game related, because if you look at US, like health insurance is really hard, and like not I have experience where I was like at school and my health insurance does not care. Like, do you care? And like, I want to advocate for Planned Parenthood. This is so important. They're the only place. They're the, like, my first Planned Parenthood was like, people actually ask about my pronoun. They ask my gender identity because a lot of medical systems they just assume about it. They're just like, oh, like, oh, check this, and like they ask like every time I go to, they were like, has your gender identity and sexuality be changing? And like they use very inclusive language, and the care is very it's great. They do like they don't like people always associate parenthood with abortion, which is weird because they do like all kinds of health care. They also do like like mental health like resource, and they also like make sure if you are experience like domestic violence, and like they checking, and like they if you ever feel like you're not being accepted, or you just want to like I not like they probably wouldn't like solve all your problems, but a lot of problem you have, if you talk to them, they will give you a resource to help you find like they gave me like local crisis hotlines, and they gave me like where to find like shelters, like talk about homelessness, and like and also like they provide health care in like a sliding scale ability. So like if you cannot afford healthcare, if you cannot afford like insurance, they will still provide healthcare to you, and like free of charge. And so like Planned Parenthood has experienced a lot of like unfair attack, and a lot of like negative connotation. But to me, I just want to advocate Planned Parenthood. They are doing like really good job, and people there they're doing their best try to provide a safe environment for marginalized people. And so that's like the resource I want to give. I don't know if it's like it's okay, but
No, that's a great resource. I'm
yeah.
gonna definitely. I actually was looking at Planned Parenthood the other day, because I was looking for a different medical provider, and you're right. Like they ask you, like, what's your gender, what's your sign, sex of birth, what's like. So they're making a differentiation there. They ask your pronouns, and they serve
Yeah.
everyone, and they provide PrEP services, PAP services, HIV services, everything. So yeah, they're
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, and they do not like the STD testing and anything, and they never like I never experienced anyone being feel like I feel I'm being judged by for my lifestyle, which is really refreshing in medical
Yeah.
system. Unfortunately, my queer joy moment is I have a very good. I work on a project called Himbo Hunter, and I co-lead project with Radiant G, and he is first of all he recently had top surgery. Congrats to him, and he's wonderful. But one thing that really helps me to like accept, I remember I forgot what exactly, but like we were in a networking room with Radiant and like a few other people. And as a lot of game dev networking, I like people just talk over me a lot because I'm not a man. I'm not very like loud and stuff. And I remember Radiant just like and so there was someone who's like both misgender me and talk over me, and Radiant just like suddenly he just come in and stop the room and be like, first of all, Monica is genderqueer, do not call her a girl, and second, let her talk. And that was like nobody has ever done that in my life until that point, and not many often. And like I did not know that's a thing people would do. And I remember feel like a little bit panic, but also just I was so happy. And I think having him as a friend is really what helps me accepting who I am. Follow Radium G on Twitter, please. And he's doing a press space to Jump, which is employee led like game press, which is great. But that was just like a moment I think back a lot, and like I try to do that to other people in the future, because it's like being like as someone was marginalized, you get talked over a lot, you get misgendered a lot, but like him standing up for me makes me realize I should stand up for myself. And so that's the moment I want to share.
I love that, and
Nice.
I know Radiant. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
awesome.
Oh gosh. Let's see. Resource wise, let me Actually, let me drop a little thing in the chat here. Uh, this is actually just the link to a researcher who's making some super big waves right now. Just in terms of there was a Kotaku article recently, but they're doing a lot of like kind of like high level, like grad level work in looking at the ways in which gender and diversity impact the management structures of game development as a whole. And there's just like a bunch of great stuff to dig into as far as that goes. And I will probably end up now that I'm thinking about it, I will probably post a bunch of like book links and recommendations in the Discord and elsewhere as well, because there are now a lot of actual resources available out there that like I had no access to back in the day. But as more people get through the structure of academia and start to write down their thoughts, we're starting to see more actual literature about it, which in turn enables me to like pop up in the middle of a conversation and go, hey, that thing that you have a random opinion about, actually lots of people are thinking about it. Here's some stuff you can learn. And that often helps take like a conversation that might otherwise just be kind of like talking heads and turn it into like, hey, we've established context. There's a body of things that everyone can learn a little bit more about in these conversations. Let's go look at that. And that kind of can help push you away from the combative zone and over to the we're all here on this development spaceship zone, which is where you want to be. Um, and then, like, I don't have any super duper exciting stories. In terms of like my past in the industry, but the one that I'll share out is like a bazillion years ago. I was still in QA, and I was looking at this game, and it was like a gladiating game, and you had several main characters, and it was very like RTS style sort of. Um, and there was one of the dialogues in it that I noticed that was sort of like kind of like assuming a pronoun in a place where like you really didn't need to do that, or it wasn't germane to the content. And I was like and I sat with it for a while, like me at the bottom of the QA pit, and was like, all right, gonna bug it. You know? And so I sent it up the chain, and like it kicked off a sort of, like a pebble can become a mighty boulder type of thing. It just kicked off conversation all the way up the chain from like like the QA lead who's like, I don't think that this is actually an important thing to handle compared to all the other important feature stuff we're handling. And then a person above them who was like, well, okay, but like, have we looked for this type of thing before? And then all the way up to the manager and director level. And so it became this whole sort of like thing where people then ended up just like having this big conversation about all of these topics that wouldn't have happened if I didn't put in a little C-level bug about like pronouns and descriptors. And so just to let you know, it doesn't always have to be like, you don't have to carry the whole thing on your shoulder. Often all you have to do is just go like, hey, I'm here. And just that like is enough to start people engaging with this stuff that they may not have previously. And so whoever's out there and needs to hear it, you're awesome. You're kicking ass. Don't be ashamed to be there. You deserve to be there, and we need you, in fact.
QA, carrying the industry one pronoun at a time. There
Hell
you
yeah.
go. I love it. Okay, so that was all of our panel questions. If there are any last moment questions in chat, let us know. But I think what we're going to be doing, thank you, Monica, Ken, that was like great. I love this conversation. I hope you had fun. We're going to be playing some Jackbox in a moment. Now, if Monica, Ken, if you can stay around, that's cool. If you can't, I totally understand. Just let me know in chat, and then we're gonna be back in maybe like like 5-ish minutes to play some Jackbox. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna mute everything. So give me just a moment, and Monica, Ken, I will let you know when you are no longer on here. So give me just a moment. There's just like a few buttons.
Sitcom freeze frame.
Mm-hmm. All right, the BRB screen